Do you have a great admiration for people who don't even exist? Do you know histories of fake worlds better than you know your own? Do you geek out? If so, geek out with us. Here, now. It's the Geek for All show.
Hi, yes, hello, it is the Geek for All. We are back. Sorry for our weird scheduling that's been going on. We keep not being able to meet up and record for various reasons, and do apologize about that. Eventually, coming to you will be an episode about Guardians of the Galaxy. That's not going to be this week. Me and Winchester are going to be talking about Wonder Woman today. We'll be getting that Guardians review to you, or some form of it. It may wind up being a whole other thing altogether. We'll see what winds up happening. We got some of it done, and then things happened that were bad. Technical difficulties. Anyway, but we're here to talk about Wonder Woman today. Yay! DC does an entertaining film.
Okay, I think we need to preface this episode with the bar was not set very high.
Yeah.
Like, in comparison to everything else DC has done, because if you listen to any of our shit, you know that we love to shit on DC. It's just too easy.
Well, at least the cinema.
The cinema, anyway. But, so to be fair, going in, the bar is not set very high. Expectations, not very high. That being said,
It was good.
I enjoyed it.
It was good.
I enjoyed it.
It was good. I will get down to there's a couple of things that two scenes that are really part of like sort of the same problem that really almost killed it for me because they start and end the film. So most of the story takes place during either Diana growing up or during World War I.
Right.
We don't really know how long Diana grows up for. That's kind of a mystery. It might be like, 100 years or so. It might be like the natural, human lifespan type. We really super unclear as far as where they're going with that. But most of the movie does take place during World War I. And everything from the time that she is running as a little girl through the end of the World War I stuff is a solid film that is enjoyable, that you can even go back and rewatch and really get something out of.
Definitely.
The opening and ending scene of the actual movie itself, however, are hot pieces of garbage. Which is weird. Which is weird because they're the tie-ins with the Justice League, which so far have been the best parts of any of the DC films.
Right. Like, the best part of Suicide Squad was them, like, Flash showing up, or, like, them kind of doing things that alluded to Justice League, which, to be fair, Justice League trailer, for me anyway, ran before the Wonder Woman, like, actual showing. Mm-hmm. Looks awesome.
It does.
But we know how well just DC does their trailers.
Yes.
So we'll get back to that anyway.
Yeah, we'll see how that ultimately pans out. As for this film, though, the attempts they actually had just a solid Wonder Woman film on their hand.
Yeah.
That was the thing, and they really, really had to hamstring it to fit in with the Justice League. And I don't think you needed to do that, because the opening scene added nothing whatsoever.
No, not really. I mean, I think I could have done without it and still had the end scene and made the connection.
See, the end scene for me is actually worse. Like, the end scene for me, I think, is one of the worst parts of the film. And it really, like, it was annoying because I was enjoying the film, and then it ended the way that it did, and for several reasons, it bugged the crap out of me. I get that it has been stated that, like, Wonder Woman is about the power of love and everything.
It was very shoehorned in.
Yeah.
It was a very shoehorned kind of message. She didn't need to say anything about that. I feel like her being about love was already pretty clear just throughout the entire film. I don't think you needed to come right out and say it. Also, her changing into her Wonder Woman outfit and standing on top of
it. It was kind of weird. I also have a question. What the fuck was she jumping onto?
I don't know.
What was she jumping? There was just nothing that I was expecting, like, I don't know, like the bat jet to show up or something like that. Or...
Well, yeah, because there's no reason for her to jump to change, because we assume that she's not defending Paris. Like,
right.
So
she's out of the game theoretically. That's why he sends her the picture
to get her back in. So what does she jump? It's not very. It's very muddy.
Yeah, unless it's the invisible jet that she's jumping into, but we don't like.
We've not seen the invisible jet,
well,
and I kind of hope that they're not going to try to do the invisible jet. I don't think
so funny.
It's
so great.
I mean, it's hilarious.
It's so 1940s.
Yes.
Comic booky.
It is, and I don't think it translates either to the Scream or to the modern day at all.
It's not like the Batmobile where you can adjust it to be the type of feeling of the movie. Like, you've got Tim Burton's Batmobile, which is a little more cartoony. It's a little more... They have the Bat Cycle, whatever bullshit. And then you've got, like, the Dark Knight kind of Batmobile. The Tumbler, where it's a little more...
It's a
War
tank.
Machine.
It's a tank. You know, like, it's practical. It makes
exactly.
sense that he's driving that thing around.
So it's adaptable to the type of feeling that you're getting in the movie. Her invisible jet is not the same.
I don't think you can get it. I mean,
you might be able to as like a military cloaking device.
Right. As long as it's not actually called the invisible jet. And as long as Wonder Woman can't be seen flying it while she's in the invisible jet.
As long as she gets cloaked as well.
Yeah. Which I know people will be upset about that because it's like, no, but you can see Wonder Woman. That's the whole point. Yeah, well, that's dumb.
That's dumb. That's dumb. But yes, to jump between the modern day, her reliving this story and reminiscing about it, and then sending this email to Bruce and being like, oh, thank you, blah, blah, blah. It was very much like they didn't want to pull a Captain America where they start off immediately as a child, like her as a kid, and bring her through, like almost like a sequential timeline like they did with Cap.
I mean, why not? The whole movie was Captain America.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is like, it very much... Not to say that I didn't love it.
No. It was. Don't get me wrong.
It had to be.
It had to be.
That
was what they. That's the equivalent character that you can find like in Marvel, honestly. So, and their two stories are just very similar.
Yeah, it's just the way it happens to be.
It just is how it is. They both have a similar archetypal story. That archetypal story has been done, like, Captain America wasn't even necessarily that original of a story. We've seen that done even before the comics, even before the whatever. Like, that story technically has been done, so it's just being done again because that's the story of Wonder. That's how it works. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Just own it.
Yeah, it just felt a little compared to the rest of the movie. It felt very shoehorned. And it felt very like, all right, children, after school special, what have we learned? And let's wrap everything up in a nice little bow and tell you what what you've just watched. We understand it. We get the nuances.
Yeah.
We understand.
Although speaking of nuances, I'm still a little. So does she have the explodey power, or does it come through her braces? Because that part of it is so. Can she just use the brace? Like, I assume it's her, but the fact that it's always animated, like, directly coming out of the braces is very confusing, to be perfectly honest.
Her, and I think the braces become more of, like, a focus.
Okay, that I can buy. That
kind of thing?
Yeah, because they sort of just glossed... They glossed over that power entirely.
They glossed over a lot of her mechanics.
Yeah.
For a movie that very much showed, like, her origin, they glossed over what she was actually kind of capable of. Mm-hmm. They were like, oh, you can wield this sword and destroy Ares, but that was kind of that was a red herring anyway. Right, exactly. But it was very much like the mechanics of how she functions as a superhero were not necessarily touched upon for an origin story. It was shown, but it wasn't so, I guess because it wasn't explained.
Yeah.
But nobody really knows how it worked anyway. So.
Right, so, I mean, there wouldn't have been... You wouldn't have been able to do much explanation, but I don't feel like you would have needed much explanation either, just to make things a little clearer, because again, I assumed like that it had to have been coming from her and everything, but it was portrayed just oddly enough where you might have wanted to make that clear, and there's a couple of moments like that. That's the one that stands out to me like the most. But on the note of that power, that sort of Hulk explosion type thing, because it's definitely very emotionally based. I feel like it's weird when they had her show it off the first time, because I feel like if it's based off of like a emotion and it's like supposed to be based off of like her love or whatever,
right?
Shouldn't she have popped that off for the first time after her teacher died?
Instead of like during the training
Instead
session.
of during like the training session.
Yeah. Because the training session, like, they're pushing her and they're pushing her and they're pushing her, but there's no sacrifice for her to really be, like, for that to, like, trigger.
Right. Like,
so, yeah, you're totally right. The better way to have done it would have been when her... And, like, she still steps up and you still get to see more of it, but that really should have been the first time.
Right, because I feel like it needs to be clear that her whole, like, she is powered by the grief of love, love lost, isn't necessarily just a romantic love, which I don't think was illustrated very well by this film. And I have kind of a problem with that, to be perfectly honest. Because, like, I was sitting there when she does the thing, when boyfriend gets blown up in the plane.
Right.
and you know, she, like, you know, like, and, you know, has this explosion and everything. I was sitting there, I was wondering why it bugged me. Because I was like, well, okay. Well, because and first it was like the obvious, like, oh, okay, of course she only can do what she needs to do after her man dies, like, duh, blah. And I was like, well, but no, am I just being too harsh on that? Like, this is actually very, very akin to Goku going Super Saiyan after Krillin dies. It's kind of the same thing. So I tried to look at it from that angle, and then I realized it's almost that, but again, she would have had to do it when teacher dies in the first act. Like, at the end of the first act, instead of in the middle of the first act, if that had happened, then it solidifies that, and it actually kind of makes that... This does have this telling that she still can't control it, and that it's best under her control when she's grieving over, like, a lost love or something.
Tapping into it with that extreme amount of emotion, as opposed to just at will.
Yeah, and if you're gonna have that emotion needs to be consistent,
Definitely.
And it kind of wasn't, and then it kind of focused on, like, the romantic love instead of love in general, which I feel like if you're gonna do Wonder Woman and you're gonna play the love angle, you gotta be really, really specific about that, because otherwise it comes off really corny and a little bit pandering.
It does. And I said, you know, sitting through it, I thought it was a great, you know, for not having a female superhero movie in 12 years, and considering the last one was Elektra. Fantastic.
Wow, that's a really sad standard.
Yeah. The last major
female superhero. Oh.
Yeah,
oh.
was Elektra.
Oh, that hurts. Oh, wait. Actually, I think Catwoman was technically after that. Not that I'm saying that's any better, but...
Yeah. That being said, and maybe it was because I need to watch it. I have to admit, I need to watch it again with less of a critical eye. Because I went into it with the DC sucks, I'm just going to tear this shit apart while I watch it kind of mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I was watching it, it kind of felt like the romantic... Okay, so the normal beats in a film's romance plot kept feeling like they hit every beat, but it felt like it was trying to be a little more obvious about it. Or like they had to, like, oh shit, we forgot about the romantic part of it. Let's kind of shoehorn it in
a little bit,
and maybe not like entirely, but every so often it felt a little more forced.
Yes, but I feel like it wasn't like the moment itself was forced. I feel like they didn't know when they wanted to do those moments. I think that they wanted to portray her as a strong female while still having, like, this romantic thing tied up, which admittedly is difficult to try to portray.
Well, that's the challenge, is if it's either too much focused on... Either you get you either get Black Widow in Age of Ultron, where it's, yeah, she's badass, but you totally destroy her backstory and her calling herself a monster and et cetera, like, that was awful. Or you get the, you know, non-romantic, pure warrior side of things.
Right.
It's very hard to find that fine line.
Well, or it seems difficult. I feel like there's a lot of people who do it really, really well, and I'm not sure. It seems like, because some of those moments were all right. Some of those moments, like, worked really well.
Yeah.
Like, I liked the moment on the boat, for instance. Like, the moment on the boat was, I think, really well earned and everything. I like the moment where she catches him in the, like, the hot tub and everything.
Yes.
I think that's a good one.
Yes.
but ultimately, I think they did force them to kind of have sex, to be perfectly honest.
Like, I like the dancing scene where they're dancing in the village.
Yes,
I like that.
But then, like, the actual moment after that felt really forced, like, and like it wasn't actually going to happen based on anything else that we had seen.
Right.
And then when he's
like,
trying
you're
to keep
pretty
her,
and you're pretty, let's smash faces.
when he's trying to keep her like contained when they're in London and everything, and she's trying to like it was funny.
It was
But I feel like he was not nearly as scared of her as he should have been, and that really he was just like, oh, this annoying girl, like the entire time. It's like it should be like this annoying demigod who I have to try to explain to while like being afraid that she's going to tear my head out, and like there was none of the fear, and that bugged the crap out of me for sure.
No, and then that moment where they play dress up with her, while funny.
Unnecessary and kind of undercutting of the character.
I think that's what it was. It was that it was funny, but it was very undercutting of the character. Like, yes, I get it. Haha, she's this big bulking warrior and doesn't know how a dress works. A Victorian dress works. Fine. I get it. That could have been done in like 2 dresses.
And
I didn't
a
need
comment
like
about
10.
a corset.
Yes, I didn't need like 10.
Yeah.
I did really like this scene. Okay, I think it's just the fact, like, down, like, just pure hands down, Gal Gadot, holy shit. I love this woman. I need her to play Wonder Woman for the rest of her life.
She doesn't, like, the acting is really, really solid in this film, I think.
The fact that she was 5 months pregnant doing reshoots.
That is super impressive.
Yeah. Not only doing, like, regular, like, dialogue reshoots, but, like, action reshoots. They green screened her stomach and CGI'd it. Like, they wrapped green screen around it.
That's ridiculous and hilarious. And actually might explain a couple of shots.
Yeah, so, like, if it looks a little weird, that's why. I didn't know it until after. But one of the scenes that I really liked was the one where she follows Steve into the war room. And all these men are looking at her like, holy shit, why is this woman standing? Like, you get the full, like, we know it. It's World War I, women, you know, the whole oppression thing. We know what kind of time period it is. We're not on an alien planet. We know what it's like. But the fact that we get that drastic cut from her world, where women run everything, and, like, I want to talk about the sets in that world, too. Going from that to a drastic change of a room full of men who look at a demigod, and look at her like she's
that
nothing.
scene you need. See, that's the thing. That scene existed, so the rest of it out in the streets didn't need to be there, and because that scene was perfect by itself on its own as it was. Like, that captured everything that you needed out of it.
Yeah.
And that, like, after, like, the whole dress thing kind of undercutting the character, they did have the good sense there to, like, reestablish the character and remind you who you're actually dealing with.
Exactly.
Because, she had the biggest balls in those rooms by a long shot. By a long shot.
Yeah.
Well, of course, other than maybe one person who was really just playing a long game. Cause I do like that they hid him. They hid Ares as just a, like, wartime council person. Like, that was like clever move on their part.
That was definitely clever, and to a point, like, because David Thewlis, like, he was Remus Lupin. Like, you don't really, you're like, oh, this guy, no.
He's fine. He's great. He's the best.
But as soon as the other Nazi general, as soon as the Nazi general died, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, with no, like, fanfare, nothing, like, whatever. I was like, oh, fuck. That's not him.
I was wondering whether or not they were going to go for the God approach at all, because sometimes they'll sidestep that.
Yeah.
And they're going for it, which will be interesting to see how they're going to bring all of that together. Are gods then aliens, or what?
Right.
How does that work? I mean, well, because in DC mythology, yes, but no, and more is the answer. And it'll be interesting if they actually go into all of that, because normally you tend to kind of pick one or the other when you're doing a film adaptation of something like that. This might actually go into the, like, no. It's alien in the sense that it's not terrestrial, but it's a cosmic being of great power.
Exactly.
And not in the Galactus kind of way, in the much more old school mythology kind of way.
Exactly.
So it'll be interesting to see how that winds up playing into the rest of the universe, because I'm sure that's not the last god that we're going to wind up seeing ultimately.
Definitely not.
Especially with Darkseid coming into play, like, cosmic beings are gonna be on the table.
Exactly.
But in any case, that scene is impressive, and yes, the decor, like you're talking about, these sets and everything. London versus her home.
Oh my god, like the drastic difference in color alone. Like if you ever see, they do it on, I don't remember what website it is, but they'll do, they take all of the shots, every single frame of a movie, and they condense them into like a 6-inch graphic, and you can see the colors of the movie. So like with like Harry Potter, you see it's light and then it gets darker, and then every so often you can see certain things. So like with the last Harry Potter movie, you see it's dark, and then there's a very small sliver at the end that's King's Cross, where it's all white, and then it's dark, and then a little bit of light at the end. I'd be very interested to see this movie set up in that same graphic, because you get her home world, where it's very much like tropical colors. I think they filmed it in Greece, Italy?
Well, somewhere in the Mediterranean.
And it's just, it's those bright colors, it's that green, it's those blues, and they put that difference very well with the barrier as the ships come in.
Yeah, then they decided to it's just foggy and storming around here all the time. So people don't want to come this way because it always looks like there's a storm. Like, oh, better get around that then.
Yeah. And then the fact, which shows just how much, that the human world has changed. Like how technology has changed, and that they'll just barrel in with a battleship, and they weren't expecting that kind of thing. But the other thing I know, something I had read somewhere, was that, so for the set design, primarily in the throne room, where they're using the lasso on Steve, they avoided all phallic imagery. So if you look at the throne itself, if you look at any of the pillars, it's all circular.
Oh,
they avoid all upright structures.
Yeah,
it's all circular. It's all non-male oriented, which I thought was really interesting and something I would not have thought of. I would never have thought to do that.
That is actually kind of an interesting approach. Pretty much circles are the only thing you have at that point.
At that point, you have circles. But it's all, it's archways, which, you have archways in both. But yeah, it's very much like non-phallic representation, which is very interesting. Because it's a different society.
Yeah, and in fairness, this is, based off of ancient Greek mythology, and the imagery of things being based on one of the genitals was actually like a big deal. Like that was like, things were in Greek culture, if a thing looked really phallic, it probably was intentionally so. If a thing really looked I can't actually think of what the other word is, but opposite of phallic, it was very much intentional. So to go into that level for their throne room does make sense.
Right. And then you've got the Amazons themselves, where they hired athletes and professionals and
Buttercup.
Yes, and Buttercup.
That made me really happy.
It was so cool. Like, I didn't even realize it until after we had gotten out and I'd seen like the meme that's around or whatever, and I was just like, holy shit, that's fucking awesome.
Nobody needs to save her now.
No. And then the other warrior, not Diana's aunt, but the one that trains them, is actually a boxer, like a professional boxer. And so like they pulled her from, and like she was somebody like in her earlier in life, she had like gone to jail and she was in rehab and all this other stuff, had found boxing as an outlet and became like this professional boxer, became kind of a therapist for other people that were in the same situation, and then they hired her to play this character. And
which, minor role, but still super awesome, and great attention to detail on the part of the casting directors.
Absolutely. Also, they won't touch on it in the movies, I really doubt it, but in the comics, that character becomes Wonder Woman at one point.
Yeah, okay.
It's not Artemis. Maybe it is Artemis.
Is that Artemis?
I don't remember. But it's one of the women that... It's not Antiope. Let's see if I can find her again.
But what you're saying, though, in comparison, when you're looking at that architecture in comparison to London, which is very phallic, all over the place. More importantly, the tone. For me, the shades and colors are what really are the big distinguishing factors.
Oh yeah.
London. This is London during World War I. This is gray. This is ash. This is fog and smog is everywhere. Right. It's disgusting. And she literally, and I love that she literally just calls that they don't do the whole normally like, oh, it's so grand, it's London. She literally is just like, the fuck is this?
Exactly. She's not, oh, we're at, these giant ships and these things called cars and blah blah blah. No, she's not fazed by any of that. It's very much a, holy crap, this place is a dump.
This is gross. I don't care what you can do with it. This is gross.
Exactly. Which is very interesting. It's very interesting, and just how busy it is, and how just the fact that they changed it from World War II to World War I was very interesting.
Well, I mean, it's closer to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution as opposed to being like in the middle of it, and kind of almost past it by the time you get World War II. And the world hasn't gone through the Great Depression yet.
Right.
So capitalism is kind of king of everything, and it really, really accurately depicted how gross things were at that, because there's a lot of times, like, when you see old movies about like, oh, London from back in the Industrial Revolution and everything, like, they'll kind of clean it up. One of the better ones up until this point that I had seen as far as a representation was the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies.
Very
but I thought that they had done a good job with making London look dirty. But they honestly, they hadn't even gone far enough. This Wonder Woman, yes, that's how it looked. That's how gross it was. That's why everybody had like 8 layers of clothing on, because it was gross and you didn't want any of that to touch your skin.
Well, yeah, and it's very much, it shows kind of the difference between this movie and even the DCU, where they're trying to make it darker and grittier, as opposed to Marvel, where, okay, think about the first Cat movie, where they're in New York, and it's grand New York, one of the best cities in the world, and he's running around, and it's not busy, and it's still relatively clean looking. It's New York in World War II, like.
Blech.
Yeah. But it's still very comic book looking. It's very,
the grand streets of New York.
Exactly. Idealized kind of place. Whereas this very much shows the difference between, it shows, because we see it through Diana's eyes, a little bit through Steve's too, because he's obviously not impressed with the city either, that it's not the paradise that she had. It's very, it cements that difference between what she's used to and what she's going into.
Which helps enforce all of the things that she struggles with about this new society.
Right.
Like, it looks so much different. I was just thinking, we haven't talked about her yet, but we mentioned the dress buying scene and the secretary.
The secretary is so good.
She's great.
She's so
I love her.
good. I gotta find her now. Etta.
Etta, yes.
Etta, so good.
Yeah, she was a really fun character.
Just because, like, the fact that, okay, she knows how this world works. And she knows how, women in this world are supposed to function. And she's still kind of outside the box, too. And the fact that, like, he's like, oh, yeah, Diana's, like, giant sword. She's like, oh, yeah, you should probably just put that away.
Like can I just take that? Like,
I'll just take that now.
Ingrained enough in society to know what is appropriate and what's not appropriate, but not ultimately fazed by what is not appropriate. And that's what's kind of great. She, sort of is the ultra secretary at that point, because nothing bothers her at all.
She's very much like the Pepper Potts of the group.
Yes. Very, very, very Pepper Potts.
Very Pepper Potts. And I loved her a lot. I thought she was a great addition to the group without having too much of, she still had her funny moments, but she didn't overstay her welcome. She didn't overstay her welcome, and she was never the butt of a joke. She was she made the jokes, or she was, she wasn't the comical character, but she was. If the joke
was about her, it was about her dedication to her job,
and
grabbing the sword and everything.
Exactly.
She is sort of the butt of that joke, but in a kind of positive light.
Exactly.
She was a really, really fun character. And kind of like one of the only other women outside of the Amazons that Diana gets to actually interact with.
It's
which
true.
is, and also just getting to see Diana interact with like a woman from that culture, I think was also very important because like Amazons are a little bit more dude bro.
Yeah. It's true.
Quite frankly. And so like seeing Diana adjust to that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I love the ragtag team. They
it's so good.
Although I am disappointed. I really, really wish that the sniper had actually gotten to be a sniper just for one shot, like one glorious moment. Because I get that like they're trying to showcase the shell shock, the PTSD, which all for and everything. But I think on the other side of that, him coming back around and other than cheering them up with his singing, should have come back around and been really, really like meaningful in that one. Like, oh man, like a critical moment. Like, oh no, like a wild sword is gonna wind up catching Diana, and this is gonna be a problem. No, it's not because of him. Like, just
a little
one
bit of redemption.
Yeah, that would have been nice. I think that was a wasted moment because if you weren't gonna give him the bell tower, you know, because you wanted to focus in again on the shell shock and everything, fine. You got to give him that redemption later because otherwise it's all sort of a meaningless spin.
Right, that's very true. Because then you sit there and you're like, well, what was like? I get the point, but I don't get the point because if you're gonna address it, but then not complete the story, why bother?
Right.
But having that very different, it's very interesting to see the fact that they added different cultures to the group, which because you've got all these groups did participate in the war.
And none, and that particular group, none of them were English. They were just working for the English. You had an American, you had a Greek, you had a Scot, and you had an Indian, and you had a Native American.
Yeah.
Now, Native Americans were actually, that one was like a teensy bit of a stretch. There were, like that would have been one of 5 Native Americans doing that.
He's actually a comic character, though.
Right.
So
that,
I get...
Yeah, so bringing him around totally makes sense. There were during World War I, there were a very select amount of those dudes. That is really more from World War II, the Wind Talkers, who, if you don't know about Wind Talkers during World War II, it's worth looking up. It's actually a really, really interesting thing. Basically, Native Americans were speaking to other Native Americans in their native dialect, and Germans couldn't break the code because it wasn't a code. It was a completely alien language as far as they were concerned.
That they didn't have access to. Because
fucking awesome stuff. Look up Wind Talkers if you've never heard of it.
It's a really cool thing. But yeah, you get these different cultures, and you get to see the fact that even in World War I London, it's not all white people. Like the immigration and the effect of the British Empire on the rest of the world is very obvious, which is something we don't get a whole lot of. Like if you look at World War I, World War II, on the American side, we get the all African American groups, and sometimes they'll touch on that a little bit, but we never get a lot of these stories that we got, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, a lot of times you just think about, like, America and Britain during, like, the world wars and stuff, and like, France is just kind of there being invaded. And really, no, that is what we depict. That is, like, constantly what we depict. Exactly it. France also did get invaded during both of those wars, in fairness. But no, we really don't showcase a lot of what was going on in the other countries that were actually, because it was not just a couple of countries, it was most of the world participating in this big old conflict. Or, in fairness, it mostly was centralized on Europe, and I wouldn't necessarily say most of the world, but about half the world was directly involved in both of the world wars.
Right.
In one way or another.
It was the big address that a lot of people will yell about when they have minorities in, like, Renaissance era movies, or even if you talk about, like, Frozen. Oh, well, why were they, everyone was white there? Not necessarily. So the idea that they brought these different cultures and different races, and were like, hey, not everyone was 100%, England was not 100% white at the time. And kind of showing, like, it's not like everyone all of a sudden moved there in the past 60 years. It's
right. No, I mean,
showcasing that.
Yeah, you do have to be careful because
Absolutely.
It depends on what era you are talking about. Frozen is in sort of the same era, although I would argue that where they are, granted, you could have speckled in a couple of other people. There would have been a lot more honkies for sure.
Yeah, well, yes. Yes.
But no, I do definitely see what you're saying. When it comes to once you're like through the Industrial Revolution and everything,
exactly.
Yeah, no place was a perfect, one code. It's a smorgasbord, it's got a little bit of everything going, especially if it's a major trade city. Like London.
If it had been even Dover, because Dover was a pretty big trade city, but like if you go to Canterbury,
if you've been to Dublin,
it's gonna be a bunch of white people.
Yeah,
we get it, we understand that. But it was nice because yes, we got the feminism part of it, of men versus women in the place Diana had in this society, but they expanded on it. So it wasn't just about women; it was about kind of everybody, which is, that third wave feminism is not just about making women equal, it's about making everyone equal. So it was very interesting to get that expanded on it. And even if it wasn't necessarily resolved, she can't save the world in one day.
Right.
She may try. But it also showed her that it wasn't just about war. It wasn't about bad guys versus good guys, poison, gassing
it's
villages.
all a lot more complicated.
It's a lot more complicated than her little piece, her little piece
her childhood
of,
story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Her piece of paradise is not.
No, on that level, it was definitely it was good. It was realistic for one thing. It was an honest portrayal of things. And yeah, for that, definitely big applause. Because it wasn't forced. It wasn't harped upon. No. It was very elegantly and gracefully and just sort of naturally. It felt organic. It felt.
Yes,
it
realistic.
Didn't feel forced in any way. Realistic's the right word. It felt exactly on the nose. And yes, if you're going to be trying to make a greater point about the world, standing up on a soapbox can kind of get a little bit old and tiresome. Step up on the soapbox and then step back off of it again immediately. Come up, make your point, and kind of move back on with whatever it was you were doing.
Exactly.
And this movie did an amazing job of that, and continuing to go back to that soapbox that they were talking about, but only hitting it briefly. Because again, it's still a piece of entertainment. It's supposed to be entertaining. That's its purpose. That's what we want it to do. And it did that and still got its message across. And bravo.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, I thought it was okay for again, low bar for DC, so not easy to very easy to hop over. But at the same time, certain things were groundbreaking about it, certain things weren't. I think as a movie in general, solid movie.
I don't know if anything was groundbreaking about it.
I think in terms of I think outside of the movie, certain things were groundbreaking. It's the biggest. It made the most money for a female director. It's made the most money out of a DC movie. Shit like that. Industry-wise, groundbreaking.
Industry groundbreaking, yes.
Movie-wise,
yeah. It is one of those things where I don't. Yeah, sure. Industry-wise, it has those groundbreaking facts attached to it.
Yeah.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's remember where we are, what year it is, and what things are going on. If it wasn't that movie, that number that it achieved was going to get hit in the next couple of years here. It happened to be that movie. I don't think it's. I think people tend to they see something that looks really, really positive when art kind of collides with social issues, which it does very often. I think people tend to see something good happen, and then everyone goes, "Oh, okay, that was it."
Right. They need to take this success and keep moving.
Right, and that's the thing. So when you say that something is groundbreaking, when a thing happened to be there in the right place at the right time, you got to be careful about that. This was a good first step towards seeing what we should already be seeing by now in a lot of ways.
franchise.
And plus side, we get like 2 more movies.
Good point. Good point. I do know that if this thing does become industry groundbreaking, it will be because they take a chance on other superhero females. And if that winds up being the case, then yes, I have yet to see it necessarily do that. I'm hoping that that is going to wind up being the case. But for right now, I'm cautiously like, this could be one that we forget about in 2 or 3 years, ultimately.
Which would suck. And to be honest, I really hope Marvel's looking at this and going, holy shit. Like,
can we get that Black Widow movie? Can
that
happen?
Can we get the Captain Marvel stuff? Come on, Comic-Con, something, because that needs to get on the docket, like, now.
Yeah.
Not to be said, the Black Panther trailer did drop, which I guess we can talk about when we talk about Guardians, because there's a very interesting point in there about women in Marvel. But the fact that Marvel got upped by DC and got for an industry, for DC that has been so behind on that particular issue, they've been behind on everything. They've been behind on the origin stories. They've been behind on the collection movies. They've been behind on their universe, their cinematic universe. Them getting a leg up. I'm hoping Marvel gets their ass in gear.
Hopefully, but I mean, I don't know. If I'm sitting there as a Marvel executive, I'm sitting there and going like, okay, you did the feature, fine. I think we've got almost 20 years of showcasing women better in our films
absolutely.
than you do. So I hope it is a kick in the ass, but I feel like Marvel could very easily rest on its laurels in comparison. Like, I don't find this movie to be groundbreaking. I think it might be the first steps in doing something really groundbreaking as far as female titles.
Right. Well, and that being said, Marvel, if whatever title they use, it probably won't be a Black Widow movie. Let's be fair. If Black Widow gets a movie, she'll do it with Hawkeye. It'll be Budapest, which I'd be totally fine.
I'd
with.
actually be totally.
I'd be fine with the Budapest.
I'd be cool with the Budapest movie
because we already know her origin. They touched on her origin.
They really sloppily touched on it.
Yeah, but do you want to sit through another 2-hour movie of Russian ballet?
Just skip through the ballet. There's other shit going on. I guarantee it.
But that to be said, okay, Wonder Woman raised the bar a little bit. At the same time, Marvel should be able to soar over that bar. And if they make a female-led movie that blows, that's going to show a lot of how they're just like, oh, it can very much reflect on now that Wonder Woman did great, let's jump on that bandwagon. As opposed to, because Marvel could make something groundbreaking if they really wanted to.
Right.
Because they're the ones that are leading this path.
I think there's a lot of independent comic book companies that have been on top of that for a lot longer.
Well, I mean in like the cinematic
cinematic world, yes, sure.
In terms of superhero movies.
Yeah.
Out of the two, they're the ones that are DC's always going to get compared to Marvel because Marvel did it first.
Fair. Yeah, okay. That excuse. I thought you were specifically talking about with the feminist issue in particular.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Just in general as far as okay, yeah. No, I agree. I think that this should be I'm hoping it'd be great if this was a wake-up call for Marvel. What I actually hope this is a wake-up call for is DC proper. I hope the rest of them can, because this is, again, while nothing about this movie was tremendous, if you scale it for DC films, holy shit, this was phenomenal. Oh my god, there's a story that I can follow that's interesting, that I'm not trying to catch up with the plot every 2 seconds. Wow, all of the editing actually makes sense and the fights look cohesive and oh, look at that, I can tell who's winning and who's It was a movie. It was a goddamn movie done correctly, which is apparently a phenomenal achievement for DC. But I hope they I hope they go everyone else, or that somebody at least is pointing to everyone else, pointing them to this film and being like, this is how you do it. Do them like this, and it'll be fine.
But what sucks though is that I was reading an article the other day about the comic. Mm-hmm. So Wonder Woman DC is weird in the fact that they kind of just let everyone do whatever the fuck they want. But there's going to be a new head lead on Wonder Woman. Not going to be a Wonder Woman. It's going to be her brother, I think. So they're taking the Wonder Woman title, and his first storyline is going to be male run. So it's all about her brother instead of her or her half-sister. Not half-sister, her sister, or any of the other Wonder Woman that can do it. They're taking it back to a male superhero. And I'm kind of like, guys, did you not? They spelled it out real easy. That's not. Come on, let's not do that.
Like, it's barely liked when it's done the other way around. How do you feel like you're not gonna get a major amount of backlash?
Exactly.
On that?
Exactly. So we'll see if they learn their lesson.
No, maybe.
I could see that. Well, and it also gives me a little bit of hope for the Harley movies. Because we're gonna get a Harley movie, which if they've learned anything from Suicide Squad and comparing it to the Wonder Woman movie,
we might have a chance. We might have a chance. I certainly hope so. This is a good get for the DC cinematic universe.
They absolutely
really did need this. And for people who have been waiting for a Wonder Woman film for a very long time, I'm glad that it did not suck. Because that would have been heartbreaking if it had sucked. I kind of wish it had been better. To be perfectly honest, I feel like it still could have been better. Like, I'm gonna hold DC to a really high standard because I know they can do better than what they've been doing. Even in this film, which is miles better from what they have been doing, they can do better. It can be done better. It should be done better. Your fans have been loyal enough for long enough for you to give them that.
Miles better is sad when it's a softball throw. Like, underhanded throw of like, oh, here you go, guys. Like, the bar set on the ground. They, it was really, they had to have really fucked it up to make a bad movie.
Right.
In comparison to the rest.
In comparison to the right. And they didn't do that. They not only made a good movie for them, they made a genuinely good film. It was a good film. It can be a great film. The next Wonder Woman can be an amazing film. Please make it an amazing film.
We need a Winter Soldier.
Yes,
guys.
Yes, we do.
We need a Winter Soldier.
No, very, very seriously. And you have got an actress who has absolutely got the chops to pull it off for you. That's the thing. Like, she was way better than half of the scenes that they put her in this film, to be entirely honest. And which Chris was in this one? It was Chris Pine, right?
Chris Pine.
Yeah.
It's funny because he went on like the Tonight Show and did
talking
a
about
tutorial.
the different Chris's, yeah.
The Chris's and all the comic book heroes.
Yeah,
This was Chris Pine.
This is Pine, okay. Who did an all right job with
Chris Pine's never
it.
awful in anything. He's just kind of
there. And that's the thing, to put him up with her, like, she outperformed him so much that it was one of those just like, I want to see her back and forth with. Like, to be entirely honest, I'm actually looking forward to better written Affleck scenes with her.
Well, and that's the only reason why I want to see Justice League, is her and Jason Momoa. Between the two of them, which, on my deathbed, I never would have seen myself heard myself saying that I'm looking forward to Aquaman.
But here you go.
I'm looking forward to Aquaman.
I mean, have you seen those abs?
Oh my god. He's so good, and like, the Justice League trailer is all about him, and it's amazing. And he's just like, he's some surfer dude who's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna jump off this moving Batmobile. I'll see you guys in a second. Like, all the jokes we make about Aquaman, we're gonna be eating our words, I think. I hope.
I certainly hope so.
It
looks badass. Everything I've seen is very badass. I enjoy him as an actor.
Oh yeah.
Because he's got this. It's weird. Like, it's not like he's got like a huge range.
No.
But
he plays himself mostly.
He plays himself. Well, okay, to a certain extent. But what he does is he plays a tough guy really well.
Yes.
But he literally, if there was a range for tough, which there is, like, tough guy actually covers a lot of different things inside of that, and he can do, I'm convinced, any tough guy imaginable. I don't think he's got a lot outside of tough guy.
No.
But he can literally do the whole gambit of tough guy.
Right.
And that's what's really cool to watch about him, is he's got a wheelhouse that he is really a master of. And he's got this incredible energy to him that,
you can tell he's enjoying it.
Yes.
He wants to be there. He likes what he's doing. even in, because, okay, if you haven't seen the first season of Game of Thrones, shame on you. It's been like 7 years.
Khal Drogo.
Yeah. He's only in it for the first season, but you can tell, like, he was at C2E2 a couple years ago, and he talks about it as if he was still part of the show. Like, he talks about it, he knew how he was going to die. Like, that's in the books. The books are 20, 30 years old. Like, he knew. But he still treated it as if he was going to have a job after his death. He seems to treat all of his roles very much as this is what I'm doing right now, and I'm going to be serious about committing to it.
Well, I think that comes from what one of his, like, because his first roles were on stuff like Stargate Atlantis, and like weird sci-fi projects and stuff. So that fan base is usually a pretty dedicated fan base. Like it's a small but very proud and very concerned fan base.
Right.
So that's the thing. Like once you step away from that role still kind of comes with you when you're in something like that.
You're still that character.
Yeah, that's the thing about sci-fi and fantasy, and the fans who like, if somebody portrayed a character, they're always that character a little bit. Even if there are other characters that they are also always going to be.
Jewel State is always Kaylee. Forever and ever until she dies, she'll be Kaylee.
Right.
And it's very much the same with any sci-fi person.
But you look at somebody like Patrick Stewart,
right.
Who, yes, he's always going to be Captain Picard, but he's also always going to be Professor Xavier. Like,
exactly.
Like it's and that's the thing with Momoa is he is always going to be Roland from Stargate Atlantis. He is always going to be Khal Drogo.
Yeah.
And then if he pulls off his stuff, which it looks like he's going to be, he's always going to be Aquaman.
And that's what everyone's going to reference and compare to.
And I think you're right. I think he does take that seriously, and I think he
it's a nice change.
Yeah.
It's a refreshing change and the fact that they're working so closely with him in terms of like Aquaman's origins, and not just like his mystical origins, but like the fact that they use his tattoos in the costume design. And some reporter asked him if he could swim, and he's like, "I'm Hawaiian."
Granted, he grew up in the Midwest.
Yes.
So he's not from Hawaii proper, but
still, like,
he is Hawaiian. And,
so,
and he's traveled the world.
Right.
Basically he had no aspirations of becoming an actor, and then kind of like traveled the world and sort of like got roped into it because he's this big hulking beautiful guy, and so like naturally somebody wanted him to be in a film or something at some point.
Just stand there and look pretty.
Just stand there and look pretty, and he had fun with it, and that was what it was. He had a lot of, he's like, wait, I get to like do all this weird fun stuff, and like they capture me on it, and then people recognize it and say hey and stuff. Like that sounds awesome. And he's I feel like I want him and John Barrowman to do a project together. I don't know what, but that's
just because they have fun with everything.
Right. No, that's he's got that like level of energy and passion about what it is he does, and interacting with the fans because of it and stuff. And so I would love to see those two get together. I feel like they've got an energy that would really vibe off of each other, or it would be entirely too much in one room. I don't know, but I want to see that disaster happen.
You'd be able to keep up with John. Not a whole lot of people can.
Right.
And but between him and Gal Gadot, she was in the Israeli army, for Christ's sake. Like, she's such a badass. And between the two of them, I think they're gonna steal the movie. I really do.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And I really hope that they don't. It's hard because there's now there's some reshoots and all this other stuff that's going down, and reshoots is a swear word in DCU. Like,
well, but it's reshoots that are happening under the advisement of Joss Whedon.
This is true. So we'll see. But I hope which means that my fear of her getting kind of pushed to the side probably won't happen.
Oh no! If anything, the reshoots are probably gonna be
more of
her. If there's anything.
Because
on that
Joss
kind of
is very. Yes, certain things are problematic, and we could get into a whole thing about that. But he's very aware of that.
Yeah.
And he's very tuned into the fan base and what they want. And I'm just hoping, because between her and Momoa, they could easily save anything that could be super shitty.
I will say this. I feel like those two are gonna be Brad Pitt and the old Jewish guy in Ocean's 11 to Brad Pitt's Clooney.
Yes.
Basically, or
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Not Brad Pitt's Clooney.
Saul.
Ben Affleck's Clooney.
Ben Affleck's Clooney, yes. Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Because that's like Ocean's 11 is about Danny Ocean, but Brad Pitt and Saul are the two best fucking characters in the entire movie.
Yes.
Mostly just because Brad Pitt's always eating.
Yes.
After the second watch through, you realize he's literally eating something in every scene, and then never finishes it, and then throws it away in the middle of eating it.
Because they couldn't get him to put shit down. He just kept walking onto set with food.
Yeah.
That movie's amazing. The rest of them, but that one's amazing.
But that one's amazing, yeah.
But yeah, that's very true. Is that they still they're still quote unquote secondary characters, but at the same they're secondary billing, but between the two of them,
I think you're right. I think they're gonna completely steal it.
Which I'm totally fine with.
I have no issue with that whatsoever. Because I think Affleck is gonna be awesome, but he's the type of guy who he works best when things are getting stolen from him a little bit. When
he's very much
he's a straight man. He's a straight man. He's a straight man in things like that's. And that's what was amazing and hilarious about him and Jeremy Irons as Alfred was that it was an older Bruce. And Alfred's always been a bit more of the comedian because Bruce is way too serious. So you got to still see that here, but they're both older and they're both a bit bitter. And seriously, I would watch a buddy film with those two. Just like those two, directed by Kevin Smith, just Batman and Alfred giving each other shit in the Batcave, for 2 hours. I will watch it
because that's the best parts of their relationship, really.
And it was certainly the best parts of Batman versus Superman.
This is true. But yeah, and who would have thunk that we would have been like, yeah, Ben Affleck, like,
so good.
Like, hey, okay. But you're right, is that he's very much, there's a lot of times where he kind of sidesteps, and even though he may be a main character, a main antagonist, his
but that's also
Batman.
Batman is a straight man, or if he is being the humorous one, it's because he's so dry. It's ridiculous.
It's true.
Which is a very new, that never was even really much of a thing until some of the new recent DC animation, which that's kind of the direction they decided after they switched voices from Kevin. I'm drawing a blank, but the guy who did it in the 90s.
Yeah.
I
know what you.
But after they switched from him, they kind of started writing the character a little bit more sarcastically, but really, really dry sarcasm, where a lot of it is like very like single quick lines, or even just like looks with like a very slight smile back, and so, that's who Batman is. Batman is not like, if anything, he's either the straight man or just very sarcastic and dry. And so, Ben Affleck working as a straight man, I think, will work really nicely for the film. So, those two stealing it from him will be fine. And then I have no problem with anything being stolen from Superman because I don't give a crap. I've given him 2 movies now. He still hasn't gotten it figured out. I don't care.
Which sucks. But yeah, we'll get the comedy from Jason Momoa. We'll get the comedy from the kid who's playing Flash. We'll get probably a little bit from Cyborg, just like the attitude from the way they portrayed him in certain other things. Like if you think about like Teen Titans and stuff like that, his character in general. And then, Bruce will just kind of be there like, oh, look at all of these assholes that I've...
Well, because he's the wrangler of an assorted bag of cats.
Exactly. And he'll be that wrangler, and Ben Affleck plays the wrangler very well, and we'll get him to, we'll get some of the shots in, and he'll be sarcastic, and it'll be funny, and then, hopefully it won't be a total garbage dumpster fire.
Yeah, but I do expect Wonder Woman to just kind of be because I don't think she's gonna steal it in a very flashy way. I think she's gonna be one of the most grounded parts of the film, more than likely. Absolutely. And so that is what's really gonna steal potentially a lot of focus from the other two who are supposed to be top billed or whatever.
Yeah.
Although I think technically she's up. I think the top billing is the 3 of them.
Yes. And then the other 3 are the second billing.
Right.
But typically she kind of, if you look at any, marketing or, in the past, she's always Superman's in front, and then Batman might be either next to him or right behind him at his right side, and then Wonder Woman's kind of
which
over
is
here.
Dumb because she's supposed to be on the left-hand side of Superman.
Right.
If you watch any of, the television shows or, read the comic, if they ever do the 3 of them in, a pose like that, Superman's in front, Wonder Woman and Batman are on either side. Batman's usually to his right because Batman's his right-hand man.
Right. Exactly. Literally.
So like she should at least be like, no, yeah, I know, I have noticed that a little bit. Now, in fairness, the other two dudes are kind of huge, so that she might literally just look kind of smaller. They might be trying to pose her like that, and it's just like not working.
But
so it's hard to say exactly for sure. But yeah, no, the fact that they are having at least a problem with that one way or the other, whatever the reason is. Yeah, no, she does kind of. Although in fairness, we've made, as fans, kind of a lot of poor assumptions about the marketing for Wonder Woman, like all the way up through this movie and everything.
Oh, yeah,
like
absolutely.
people were like complaining, like, I haven't seen marketing anywhere. Blah, 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 blah. You're not spending any time. It's like, we took an ad out at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
We are going for higher level ones rather than all of the other, because that hasn't been working for our films very well. So we're trying something new because we actually want this film to work well. You know, so sometimes you don't always know what's actually in the advertiser's mind. There's a lot that goes into it.
They're trying new things because the old shit hasn't been working.
Or more importantly, the audience is caught up with the old shit and they're bored with it, or onto the game of whatever the old shit is.
Yeah, and if they oversaturate it, especially, okay, so say with like the Wonder Woman movie, if they had oversaturated it and you saw constant commercials, constant product placements, constant bullshit, you know for a fact all of the old school fans, blah blah blah, whatever, all the critics would have been like, oh, look at this, they're just over marketing and blah blah blah, and we're tired of it, and stop shoving it in our faces, etc., etc. That's what would have happened. They would have bitched about it, and then no one would have gone to see the movie.
That's probably fair to say. That is probably fair to say.
And while I'm always about promoting the new stuff and, like, you know, could have used a little bit more? Maybe. But at the same time, we all still went and saw it. And again, you know what? Honestly, as harsh as I'm being and everything, bravo to DC. Yeah.
You seem to be on the right footing. Keep it going.
Yes.
Challenge yourselves to be the ones who make a groundbreaking superhero film now, because you did it not that long ago, and you could do it again, and you could do it with somebody unexpected, because we expect that from Superman or Batman or something like that.
Exactly.
Do it with somebody, do it with Wonder Woman, or hell, do it with Cyborg even, or somebody like that. Do it with somebody that we're not expecting to make a groundbreaking film out of, and really muster it and get something that is not just entertaining, get something that is meaningful, because you're working the cusp of it, but you can do so much better. Your comics for years have done so much better. Do so much better.
Moral of the story.
All right. So, if you didn't get around to seeing Wonder Woman in theaters, I highly recommend picking it up on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever.
Yes.
It's definitely well worth your time. It's definitely well worth checking out.
Don't see it in 3D, but go see it. I would say go see it in the big screen.
If you still have the opportunity, it's nearly out of theaters at this. But yeah. So that was Wonder Woman, and we probably will not be coming back to you. We might release our Guardians review later on this month, but if we don't get around to that, we probably won't see you guys until next month. We've been talking about potentially boiling these down to maybe once a month. Winchester is moving across the friggin' globe.
I am.
Not really across like a couple of counties, but it's a stretch. It's a long haul, so we might be getting together a little bit less to do this, but we'll be still coming at you at least once a month. So, but we will be back. Either I will drop what we have of our Guardians trailer, or maybe we can finish that up later this month. If not, we will see you guys next month. You all have yourselves a great evening.
Bye.
The music for the Geek for All show has been provided by Fat Street Beats, Ben Sound, and Purple Planet. Please support their individual pages.